Hello everybody, and this week I've been having a little bit of a tinker around with Shovel Knight on the Nintendo 3DS. Cool. So can I please get an intro now? So, Shovel Knight. Well, a lot of you might be thinking I'm very late in talking about this game, but you'd be wrong, because only a few weeks ago this was finally released for European and Australian markets. So, why? I don't know. I think it's something to do with our rating system and them getting it checked and it taking a long time. I don't know. Who cares? Let's talk about the game. Shovel Knight was developed for PC, 3DS and Wii U by Yacht Club Games, and this is a game that's clearly designed and presented and themed around all of those classic, hard but sometimes fair NES and SNES platformers. But instead of this game feeling just like a simple send-up and nothing more, this game actually takes multiple elements from all sorts of games like DuckTales and Mega Man, and it throws them all in together and it explodes in its own unique character to make it feel more than just a simple retread. Yacht Club Games are also an indie team, and the way that this game feels like a lovingly crafted experience based off of those classics I mentioned earlier is testament to that. This feels like it was a proper game made by proper fans of the genre. And you could see this game as the ultimate soup of different platforming and side-scrolling elements thrown together and then blended in with its own unique little characteristics and mechanics. If you couldn't tell by this point, I really fucking enjoyed this game, and here's why. The plot of this game sees Shovel Knight and his beloved partner, Shield Knight. They begin the game searching treasure together and basically having a jolly old time, but then one day while exploring the Tower of Fate, they get cursed by this dark amulet. And when Shovel Knight awakens from this curse, Shield Knight is nowhere to be seen. Obviously, Shovel Knight then goes into a massive grieving session, and then hears that a mysterious enchantress has actually unsealed the Tower of Fate for anyone to kind of go in, I suppose. And so, with hope of finding his beloved in the tower, Shovel Knight kicks into gear and then goes through the kingdom, defeating all of the enchantresses, knights, who are also known as the Order of No Quarter, who are basically, some of which are Shovel Knight's friends that basically went onto the Enchantress's side and then started trying to attack everybody and take over the land. So, you know, not that great. So Shovel Knight has to fight through all these people, reach the Tower of Fate, and maybe save Shield Knight, maybe see where she's gone. Basically, we don't know until we get to the tower. The plot itself, while being very simple and of classic video gaming narrative structure, is actually peppered with a lot of its own charm and personality. Not just from the fact that the shovel in this game is played off as the traditional sword, which is just, that's kind of a little bit funny to me, and it works, but because the dialogue between Shovel Knight and all the other people you come across, whether you're in the towns or the boss battles, is fantastic. It's chock full of wit and adorable ye old English banter, which I really miss that kind of light-hearted take on the language in these kinds of period games. And the dialogue itself made me laugh on more than one occasion. There are also these really cool sequences in between each stage you complete in which Shovel Knight can have a dream, and in his dream Shield Knight is falling to earth and tons of enemies flood the screen, and your only objective, written on the screen, is catch her. And there's loads of things like that which explore the bond between Shovel Knight and Shield Knight in a player interactive manner. And so when you finally find her in the Tower of Fate, and spoiler alert, she helps you defeat the Enchantress, and she is incredibly helpful. You can see why Shield Knight was worth Shovel Knight and the player's time. It's not just a simple go and fucking rescue a princess and wait for anyone to give a shit concept that you see a lot in, like, Mario games, for instance. It's actually, it's the same kind of idea, but it's just explored in a nicer way. Also, well, I can say I've only actually played the 3DS version, but those fucking visuals are fantastic. This game features some of the best 3D depth of field effects I've ever seen on the 3DS, and every single layer of this beautifully detailed pixelated kingdom sticks out and stands out all on its own. Not to mention the character designs on Shovel Knight himself, and the boss battles and the enemies and the townsfolk are all really, really memorable and occasionally pretty damn funny, especially with all of their lovingly, enthusiastic animations. Every environment and different section of the kingdom that you explore, like in classic Mario, has its own distinctive theme and its own distinctive style and its own distinctive just feel to it. And each one is featured with its own kick fucking ass soundtrack to back it all up, and it just makes you feel like you are really embarking on an epic quest. The gameplay, though, is where this game really shines. It combines the weapon upgrades a la Mega Man, and the pogo jumping shovel a la, like, DuckTales, the enemy types and health pickups a la like Castlevania, and the overworld and secret aspect of classic Mario. Do I really have to explain why all of this actually works together brilliantly? I didn't think so. It's fucking great. The level design here is some of the best I've ever seen in a 2D platformer, and the difficulty increments are really, really fair and just perfectly structured. And because each stage, as it gets progressively trickier, adds in new obstacles, new enemy types, and it also tests you with different items that you find along your journey, and no single stage feels the same at any point. Every platform, obstacle, dirt pile, and enemy placement, everything in each stage has a reason to be placed there, and it creates a lovely flow and distinctive drive to the gameplay. You can play the game holding right and never letting go and just using all of your sharp reflexes and skills to go through some bits, but then there are some bits where the game requires you to step back and think about what you're doing before you go and do it. It's the perfect like platformer 2D platformer balance. Enemies can be really tough as well, and the boss battles are simply glorious. Every encounter you come across, whether it be an NPC walking along the overworld or the boss battle knights themselves, are all, and I mean all, well thought out and glorious. They're all extremely memorable fights, and they do get much trickier as they go on, but never in a cheap way. And the same goes for the stages on that front as well. You just need to practice, replay parts, improve on what you're doing if you can't pass a certain bit, because it is entirely possible, but you just need to be on your A game. You can't relax, like go through this game in a relaxed state. You need to be on your A game for some of these boss battles in particular. The game gives you plenty of parts during the actual stages where you can test out how to use each ability and item you pick up to its best effect, and the boss levels themselves, along with all of your items that you can use on them, have different methods and different strategies of taking them down. You can take them down in a multitude of different ways. There's so many variables with all the boss battles, and it just makes every single thing, every single encounter, it just makes the stages themselves and the encounters at the end completely fantastic and worth the entirety of the stage itself. And the boss battles are made even more memorable, and it still works. All of the item experimentation still works, despite the fact they all have their own attack patterns and behaviors and all of that stuff, and it just makes you feel like a complete fucking badass every time you take any of them down. It's great. However, like it or lump it, there is knockback in this game, which can lead to some very, 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 very frustrating deaths. But the game is never too fast-paced or too unfair in these like tighter platforming bits where you can just fall down a bottomless pit, like with just a knock of an enemy. In those parts of the game, it's never too fast-paced and unfair to allow you to react to what's going on around you, and every death that you suffer, or every hit that you suffer in the tight platforming bits, is because of you. It's never because of the cheapness of the game. Being Shovel Knight, you can obviously use your shovel. Your shovel can be used to dig up treasure, attack enemies, and bounce on enemies as well. The treasure itself is a big aspect of this game. You're gonna need it because you can go to every town and purchase yourself armor upgrades, weapon upgrades for your shovel, and just general power-ups and items to use within each stage. And by the way, most of the items you find in the game do use up your magic meter, so you're gonna have to buy different health upgrades and different magic meter upgrades, because trust me, you're gonna need them as it goes on. I mean, money is such an important aspect of this game that whenever you die, you don't lose lives. You don't have continues. You lose fucking money, and you need to be sure that you can reach that part of the game that you died in order to collect the money that's now floating around in the area. Otherwise, you've lost it all forever. And that's something that creates a lot more tension, and it gives you a much bigger drive and adrenaline rush to grab your treasure back again because of how valuable it actually is over simply losing a life. In that sense, the money in this game is more valuable than lives. Kind of weird when you think about it like that. Either way, I loved the implementation of this, because instead of just restarting from a checkpoint or the stage with one less life, you're actually given something something valuable that you lose, but then the fact that you can actually go and try to reclaim that value is what the driving force is when you die and want to try again. It makes it that much more adrenaline pumping when you want to try a stage again, because you do not want to lose that money, which then forces you to try and get better at the stage up to that point and beyond that point. It's very, very clever. I love the implementation of it. The Mega Man styled items and upgrades as well are incredibly fucking useful. All of them. I don't know how many there are. I think there are like There's over 10 of them, I believe. Sorry, this is me not doing research, but basically there's so many of them, and they're all equally useful. I ended up using one of them at every point of the game in any stage. The game gives you plenty of opportunities to experiment with every item that you've got, and they're so much fun to use, and they are genuinely incredibly useful. And there's not one single throwaway item that I can think of anyway. Talking about treasure, however, I can link this in with all of the Mario-styled secret areas that I mentioned earlier. Now, the secrets in this game, some of them which require just shoveling the side of a wall, they aren't too massively hidden, don't get me wrong. But then there are some secrets which require you to think outside the box and explore the edges of the game's parameters and explore away from all of that stuff. And like I said earlier, everything on the screens are there for a reason. So if something looks a little bit suspicious in terms of enemy placement or anything like that, it's probably been done for a very special reason, and that gives you incentive to explore every corner of the screen to find a secret area. And when you use that knowledge and implement it into the exploring aspect of each screen of the game, you can then find yourself some more hidden health, or you can find yourself like in more treasure, which is always very nice. Or it can take you, some secret areas can take you to entirely different extra challenging screens, and at the end of those screens you can either find a load more treasure, or you can find a secret merchant hidden in a treasure chest at the end of the screen, which allows you to then buy more items and more very useful power-ups that you can use during each stage at any time that you want to. So the buzz that you get from exploring and just to find even the health upgrades or the treasure or even the power-up merchant, just finding all of these things gives you so much reward and buzz, and it not only does it make you feel good for passing the extra challenging secret areas, but it also gives you a lovely reward at the end of it. Bearing in mind you have the correct amount of money for it, in which case you've got to go back and do it again. And because of all of these things together, it just made my time fly by when I was playing this. I ended up beating it in about 2 days without even realizing it because of just how much I was playing the game. And it's just got, it turns, like even looking for the secrets and everything, it turns simple, well not simple, but tricky platforming fiascos with enemies, it then turns with all the secrets and all the places to explore and the treasure hunting and everything, it turns just those bits into different adventures. It turns it into a different game altogether, and it ends up testing your mind as well as your skills with the controls, and the fact that it's all topped off with a brilliant boss battle at the end is superb. You also get a New Game Plus mode after beating it, which when you play the game again allows you to keep all of your items that you found in the last game that you played, but also significantly reduces your defense. Like, you can die very quickly, and the checkpoints are reduced as well. You have 2 checkpoints per stage instead of like 4, so it not only does it like give you another challenge and a reason to play again, but there's also these mini achievements called feats in the game, which increases even more to the replayability of the game. Add all of the encouragement from the game into the utterly, gorgeously, beautifully, buttery, amazing control of the game, and you have one of my favourite 2D platformers ever made. I'm serious. However, do I think this game is pure perfection? No, I do have one pretty major problem with the game. It's not a massive problem, but it is still a problem nonetheless. I don't know if I'm completely alone with this opinion, but I'll say it anyway. I mentioned earlier, treasure hunting is a big aspect of this game. Treasure hunting, saving money, and buying upgrades is all a big aspect of the game. Great. With that being said, there are a particular group of items in the game which are pretty much the most expensive items that you can buy in the game, and they are the armor upgrades. Well, I say upgrades, they're more just abilities that you can pick one at a time to go through the stage. So each armor has its own unique ability that you can wear at one time and then just go to the town whenever you want to change it. And I have no problem with that. I mean, if you had every power-up that every armor type gave to you in one, it would make the game too easy. You can't be too overpowered in this game. So I'm fucking fine with the whole one armor at a time idea. That's great. But when you consider the emphasis of the treasure hunting in the game, and then find out that you have saved all this money and you go to the second town of the game to find that there are these new armor upgrades you can buy, and then shell out a fair amount of your cash on these armor upgrades to then find out they really weren't worth the money you invested into them, it's kind of disheartening. I'm afraid that the only armor upgrade I found slightly useful was the one that allowed you to do one double strength attack of your shovel after 2 consecutive bounce attacks. That shit I fucking loved. I loved that armor upgrade. I used it from beginning to end of the game. But after buying all of the armor upgrades, which takes off, I mean, it is a lot of money for all of these armor upgrades, that's the only one I found useful. The other ones were just not worth the money that you put into them. Just for a few examples, there's a piece of armor in the game that allows you to drop half of the amount of gold every time you die. Well, it doesn't make it any easier or harder to grab the gold once I retry the stage again, so what's the point? And there's also another piece of armor which decreases your defense quite a lot, but also increases your magic meter as a trade-off for that. So it's a shame that you're only given 50 extra magic points, which in this game isn't fucking that much for the amount of decrease in defense that you get from that armor. And literally that's the only problem I really have with this game. I don't think it would have bothered me that much at all if either the armor itself was much cheaper, or like at least worth the upgrades themselves within the armor, or they kept the prices of the armor but then just went a bit more creative with the armor power-ups themselves, or added a little bit more magic meter to the decreased defense power-up, or do something different with the half gold dropping thing, or yeah, just do different things that made it more worth the money, in my opinion. Other than that though, after tinkering around with Shovel Knight, I can definitely say without a doubt this game is fucking unbelievable. It's really, really damn good. Talking as somebody that was never born or grew up during the NES or even the SNES era of gaming, you can still see the amount of love and passion that has gone behind every aspect of this game. And whether or not you understand all the references, or you don't know where all these borrowed elements of 2D side-scrolling platformers are coming from in any major way, it doesn't matter, because the game is still tweaked and designed perfectly, and it's gorgeously presented, and it's beautifully fun to play. And that's the most important thing. Whether or not you know anything that's gone behind it is not the point, because you can see the amount of quality and effort and tweaking and just loving love that has gone behind making this game. And so I have to say, to all of you European and Australian people that are thinking about picking this game up, do it. And to all of you US people in my audience who haven't picked this game up yet, despite how long it's been out in the country for, what are you fucking waiting for? Seriously, I've beaten the game twice. What are you waiting for? Get it! Farewell everybody, and until next time, take care.
Dear Father Christmas, I've been a very good boy this year. Well, you know, apart from shooting people and cursing to the high heavens, but the only reason I did it was because I really wanted Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U in my stocking. If I can't play it, I have no other way to relieve my inner anger, and so, if I don't get this game, more people will die.
Hey there everyone, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'd just like to let you know that I'll be running a 3-week competition on GamesGrabber to give all of you a chance to win my personal Christmas list games. This week, my pick for you all to try and win is Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U, and to win a copy of the game, all you have to do is sign up to GamesGrabber and then invite as many friends as possible to also sign up with a unique URL on the site, and the one that invites the most people gets the game, who I will then announce in the next video. Check the description for all the relative links about the competition and the terms and conditions to make sure you're all not cheating, and best of luck to you all. Thanks so much for watching my Shovel Knight review. If you liked what you saw, then please consider leaving me a little like and a comment and a share and all of that great stuff, and maybe consider subscribing, because I upload a video every single Sunday apart from when I'm on holiday or I'm ill, so I guess you can't go wrong with that, I suppose. Please check in the description for all my social networks and everything that I mentioned in the competition a second ago, and I'm also going to take this time to give a huge thank you to my top Patreon supporters. So you guys, thank you so much. Nicole Gunara, Tony Pierce, Mohammed Al-Sali, Greg Black, Abdullah Almana, Brad Bird, Tamaxco, Ahmed Al-Mutua, and Alan Angert. Thank you so much, all of you guys, and thank everybody at home for watching this video. And if it's your birthday today or watching this video, then happy frickin' birthday to you, and please remember to stay beautiful.